afternoon, and thank you for coming in today. I am the Education Outreach Coordinator for the humpback whales, so I teach about whales all the time. Today we're going to take a look at the whales and kind of the life and times of the humpback whales. A lot of facts that actually you will find in, I've given two different handouts over there. One is this one that's got the pictures on it. The other one that is the white one. The back 2 pages has 30 facts. A lot of it I'm going to bring it up on here. Fun facts about the whales that we had actually created at one point to be for a radio trivia kind of story, one day a week for a month. So there are the facts over there if you're interested in them later. So humpback whales, let's start with taking a look, getting a little perspective here. I've got my Vanna Whites here to help me. And this is, oh, I'm sorry, I did it wrong. This, you gotta hold it way up, guys. Way down, move way down, way down. Hold it sideways. Nope, it was right in the first place. Yep. Okay. Yes. Okay. Okay, so this, to put it in perspective, is the life size of a tail of an adult humpback whale. You know, when you see them out on the water, they obviously do not look this big. The tail is of an adult is about 15 feet wide. The whole humpback whale is about 45 feet long. So the tail is about 1/3 the size of the body. And I'm going to keep referring to this 1/3 measurement as I go through this. But again, when you look at that tail, you realize how it helps the whale move, but also if you or a boat was to get hit by this tail, the impact that could have on your boat, on your kayak, or whatever. A baby humpback whale is kind of close to this size when it's born, if you can imagine that, you females that have had children. But again, the measurement of 1/3 the size of the body. So we can put that one down and move. Oh, which one am I doing to make it go up and down? Oh, just with this. Okay, we are the Hawaiian Islands Humpback Whale National Marine Sanctuary. Our purpose in life is to protect the humpback whales and their habitat. We do that through a lot of education, a lot of research, and resource protection and conservation. We're going to go into each of these a little bit as we go along, but a lot of it is making people understand what the whales are all about and why we need to protect them. This is kind of the history of the status of the whales. That in 1905, there were about 15,000 humpback whales estimated in the North Pacific. That's over 100 years ago. In 1966, there was a moratorium put on the hunting of the humpback whales. The population at that point was estimated at about 1,500. So the hunting of the whales had a real impact on the population around here. In 1972, they were listed as depleted under the Marine Mammal Protection Act. And in 1973, they were listed as endangered under the Endangered Species Act. The sanctuary was established in 1992. At that time, there were about 2,000 to 3,000 whales they estimated were showing up here in Hawaii, and that's why we became a National Marine Sanctuary to protect them, was to see what we could do to help bring them back. In 2006, a program called SPLASH, which was a huge research project that went on throughout the Pacific, came up with a count of about 10,000. So the population really went up and down and up and down. And today they're protected under various state Hawaii laws. Also at this point, they are probably going to be delisted. We will no longer be declared endangered and threatened. They will still be protected under the Marine Mammal Protection Act, as all marine mammals are. But there was a petition put in about 2 years ago to look at the populations in the Pacific. And by doing so, National Marine Fisheries, they are mandated to do this when questions come out about this, found that the populations were growing all over the Pacific to a point where they're not really declared endangered anymore. It doesn't mean that whaling can come back. Hopefully they will still stay as protected. Again, they're protected under certain laws still, or will be. But you might watch for that in the news. It hasn't been completely decided, but it's kind of on its way that way. But the sanctuary will remain because they are still a protected species. Any questions on that? Make sense? Yeah.
With all the debris, the plastic debris in the Pacific Ocean, wouldn't that be a cause for concern about their environment?
It is. We're going to come back to that. Okay. If you can wait on that, we're going to touch on that as we go farther. Again, here's what's I just went over. There's protected by state laws of 100-yard approach by sea and 1,000 feet by air, which means if you are in a boat, you're on a kayak, you're on a stand-up paddleboard, you're on a surfboard, you are not to go closer than 100 yards. And think of that as in relationship to a football field. The purpose of that is to protect both you and the whales. If you are in a boat, if you're out on a whale watch boat and the boat's zipping along and all of a sudden a whale pops up in front of you, that boat is required to stop. Any vessel is. You don't know when that whale's going to come up close to you, but at that point they stop and they stay completely still. You will find on some of these whale watch boats or kayaks or whatever that you are closer than 100 yards, and as long as you are not approaching them or following them within 100 yards, it's legal. It's interesting, over on Maui, we have a lot of condos that are right along the beach, and we call it the condo patrol that's out there. They would be out sitting on their balconies early in the morning, lots of stand-up paddleboarders, canoes that are over there in the Kihei area. The water's so calm, and those guys are approaching the whales. They want the good pictures. They're getting their people out that they're taking on tours, and our condo police are taking pictures, and the digital pictures are great these days. If you see someone approaching or you think someone's going close, get that picture of the kayak or the boat and get the number of the boat. We have federal officers that then, if there's a question and there's proof that this is happening, they will go talk to those people. They will see what they can do about it. They also go out as secret shoppers on the whale watch cruises. If they get a report of a whale watch cruise boat going too close, they'll go out incognito and watch what's going on, talk to the folks. Lots of times the boat folks don't know about this rule. They don't realize they're breaking it, and most will pull back if they do. The other thing is, if that whale comes up and hits you when you're on a boat, you're in trouble. Several years ago, there was a whale watch boat that went out of Waikiki, big one, that the whale popped up right in front of it. The man was holding his 3-year-old son. The son went flying out of his arms, hit his head on the railing, and the kid died. It was enough of an impact of that boat. And but again, it was not the boat's fault. It was just that the whale popped up, and they don't have a whole lot of control of that. We try to recommend that boats go slowly, so that if they are getting close to a whale, it's not quite as big of an impact. There have been several fishing boats that have had that tail, and if you can imagine being in a 15-foot little fishing boat, and that tail comes down on top of you, you're going to be in trouble. So it's protecting the whales, and it's protecting the people. The 1,000 feet in the air is to keep airplanes from flying too close. It's real interesting with the drones out there right now, that there's a real issue with drones, and NOAA all over the country, starting in DC, is really looking into drone issues and how much impact these drones zipping down to get those great pictures that they're getting of the animals might be having on the animals. So it's being worked on. They're trying. The drones came out so fast and so quickly to the public that there weren't regulations in place at that point. But at this point, we're saying 1,000 feet. So, but that's kind of hard to control also. When we decided to become a sanctuary, this was over 20 years ago, we sent an airplane up, and the airplane went out and counted whales and tried to figure out where the biggest populations of the whales are. You can see where you are on Oahu, down on the, sorry, did that wrong. Oh, now I really messed it up. Can't do that without my glasses on. The corner down in, let me go backwards. There you go, thank you. I'm not doing this again. Okay, the corner down on the far right of Oahu is kind of where you are. Big red dot, a lot of whales are seen down there. the north shore of Oahu, certain areas of Kauai. The Big Island is only seen really on the one side where there's a big population, and the majority of the whales really like the Maui Nui area. It's calm waters, it's protected. Interesting, I was running the sanctuary office over there for several years, and had the Coast Guard call me one night and said, "We're really sorry, Patty, but we hit a whale last night." They said, "We were barely moving. It was like whale soup." This is out in the harbor, out in front of Ma'alai Harbor. And they said there were just so many we could hardly get in. And that's what happens over on Maui, especially this time of year with the moms and the babies hanging out. Again, you're going slowly. You're not going to have the impact that you do if you're going faster. So from this, boundaries were established that created what we call now the sanctuary boundaries, where we have a little more protection of these animals than other parts of Hawaii. Again, you see that Maui Nui area is completely surrounded. Lanai is the only island that is completely surrounded by sanctuary waters. Today, I'm hearing that the hot spot to see the whales is Makapu'u Lighthouse. It's a report, so if you guys are up for seeing them, a lot of moms, a lot of babies that they're seeing from up there. So especially if you can get up there early in the morning before the waves are high. But that, the North Shore, Turtle Bay area and up in there has been seeing quite a few also. And then if you go to Maui, you're going to whale soup over there. So good stuff. So whales fall under the category of cetaceans, and this includes whales, dolphins, and porpoises. Here in Hawaii, we have 83 different species, and I challenge anybody that could name all 83 species. I cannot. We have what are called the baleen whales, which are the humpback whales. We're going to go into baleen a little bit more. But they have what's called baleen instead of teeth. They're the mysticetes. The baleen is the stuff that's hanging down from the top jaw there. It's the picture on the right. And again, we're going to go into this, but they, instead of teeth, they have these. They also have two nares. A nare is also a blowhole. They've got two. Dolphins have how many? One, just the opposite. Okay, so these are the baleen whales. The big difference is they have baleen and they have two blowholes. And there's your blowhole. They do close over as they go underwater. And when they breathe and they blow out of this, they're exhaling at about 300 miles per hour. And that's why you can see the blow from shoreline. And that's one of the first things you're going to see as you're looking probably for the whales out there. You will see exactly this image of that blow coming out of the water. Again, about 300 miles an hour. The whales go down for adults go down for about 15 minutes. And that's why you'll find if you're on a whale watch boat that once they see a whale, they don't go anywhere really for the next 15 minutes. They wait to see if that whale's going to resurface and you'll be able to see it again. But they are down about 15 minutes. Babies are a lot shorter, depending on how old they are, but more half the time than what the adults are. The toothed whales, Odontocetes, and I remember this one because you go to the orthodontist if you have teeth. These are your dolphins, your false killer whales. Again, they have teeth and they have one blowhole instead of two. I think that looks kind of funny with just the one on there. Today, though, we're really going to talk about the humpback whales. They are mammals. So what does it mean if you're a mammal? What's something that we all have as mammals? Live birth. Live birth. They have never seen a whale give live birth. They have been there soon after, but have never actually been able to record the live birth. What else about the whales? About a mammal? Where's the hair on a humpback whale? See the bumps on its head there? Those are called tubercles. They have little hairs sticking out of them, and that's what they justify as being hair on the whale. They don't know what those hairs are used for. What else does a mammal? Milk. Milk. They nurse their young. The mothers produce about 100, the baby drinks about 100 gallons of milk a day. We'll go into that a little bit more. And what else does a mammal do? Breathe air. Breathe air. So you breathe air, warm-blooded, live birth, and they have hair. Okay. And the moms produce the milk. live about 40 to 60 years as far as they know. On average, the adults are about 45 feet long, about 45 tons. Again, imagine if that whale was to breathe, that would do to you. Pectoral fins are 15 feet long. The fluke, the pectoral fins are your side fins. The flukes, which is the same thing as a tail, is 15 feet across. And they have a very insignificant dorsal fin, which is about a foot high. And so it's this little fin dorsal fin that's up here. You look at that 15 feet on your pec fins, you're 15 feet here. Your mouth is also about 15 feet long, so it's really in proportion. Taught the kids how to draw this thing really by going in proportion. It's kind of cool. I've never found that on another animal, but it's 15, 15, 15, and this part of the body is about 15 feet that's left there, so kind of cool. I love this picture. Puts it really in perspective of what we look like compared to a whale. And again, if that tail was to flip up and flip you out of the water, you'd be in kind of trouble there. 15% of the whale is the skeleton, and the rest of it is blubber. And the reason for this is that the whales only eat when they are in Alaska. They've got to store up enough food in that blubber and to come down here for about 6 months so that they are just storing the food. But very little of them is actually skeleton when you look at that entire body. You see the baleen up in the front hanging out of the mouth there. And again, that goes back to about where the pec fin is, about 15 feet back. We've got ventral pleats that are underneath the underside of the whale. And I don't know if you can see this with the light not being really good there, but there's long pleats that come way back into the belly area. And it's like a fan. And what happens is when the whale feeds, it can open its mouth like this. It's huge. So this whole jaw will come down. And that's what those ventral pleats are that you see underneath. You can see them on the bottom of that picture. You've got birds jumping into the mouth, being those opportunistic feeders. But this is what allows that mouth to go wide open, which we'll go into a little bit more as we talk about the actual feeding. They have little ears, little ear flap. They're not sure if they hear things or not. Supposedly they hear each other because they sing and they communicate, but whether they hear the humans or not, little ear slit there. And then the eyes, the eyes are located about a third of the way back into the body here, again, about back into here. And the eyes, they know, the scientists say the whale will track them. If the researchers are down underwater close to them, they'll watch that eye and the eye will track the human. So at least they're seeing some kind of movement there. Not sure how much they see, but they do watch the eyes track them as they are down there. And the size of a grapefruit, which is not very big when you think of that whole entire whale that's out there. The pec fins, and these you will see slap in the water, and they're not quite sure why they do that, but it's a behavior that you can sometimes see when you're sitting on shore. I always tell the kids, they're waving at you, they're just going up and down, whether they're airing themselves out, it feels good, they're knocking off barnacles, don't know, they're playing, they're communicating, but we get a lot of this behavior down here, and that's what they were named after. They were named, the big-winged New Englander was the common name for it. The right whale back on the east coast of the U.S. was called the right whale because in the whaling days, they'd go out and they'd go, that's the right whale, go get it. And it started to be called the right whale after that, and ever since has been known as the right whale, and it was simply from those whaling days. But named after that big wing of theirs. Dorsal fin, again, doesn't seem to have a whole lot of purpose in life. I'm sure it does, but kind of insignificant when you look at the rest of the body. The strongest muscle is the peduncle, which is on this back side of the whale, right back in here. When you think of a whale, how many of you have seen a whale breach? Okay, when it breaches, it comes all the way out of the water. And when it does this, it swims down, it goes kind of down, kind of deep, and then using this muscle, pushes itself up and out of the water. 45 tons. And when you try that in a swimming pool, can you get more than your shoulders out of the water? No. So the power is coming from back here. The fins, they say, are used more for steering the whale as the whale moves around, and it's the tail and this peduncle muscle that makes the whale really move forward and move itself. The flukes, another name for the tail, again 10 to 15 feet across. The patterns are used for identification, and this is the way they track the whales, is that just as we have fingerprints and we're all different, every whale has a different design on its tail. Right now in Hawaii, I think they estimate they've got pictures of about 20,000 different whales that have been down here. When the researchers go out, the whale is swimming along like this, bobbing in the water. The boat's going like this. And as soon as the tail comes up, this bobbing boat, and the researcher tries to get a picture of that tail. I would be so sick myself if I was out there. They take a picture of that tail, they go back and they put it into the computer. Now with dolphins, they take pictures of the dorsal fin, and that's how they identify them, is by different shapes, indentations, colors on the dorsal fins. With the whale, and they can do that by a computer. They can track, compare them from one from the other with the computer. With the humpback whale tails, they cannot. So what you have are these poor young researchers, that interns that sit there on the computer. I brought back 4 pictures today. I want to know if these whales have been seen here before. They'll sit and they'll go through all the pictures one by one and try to match up these tails, and that's how they identify them. They don't name them. They give them a number. The monk seals all have names, but the humpback whales just get a number that goes along with them. But that's how they identify them. I was on a boat up in Alaska with a researcher, and she got so excited because she recognized a couple of tails up there that she had seen down here in Hawaii. But that's how they track their migration, where they are, where they're going, is by that image on the tail. Here's some different tail pictures. And with the kids, we have them try to match different ones, and you have to look very closely at how much these are different. These obviously are very different, what you're seeing here, but again, it's like your fingerprints. The humpback whales migrate to and from Alaska. It's about 3,000 miles. They go to Alaska to feed. We have no food down here. They do not eat the entire time they are down here. There's been some complaints by some fishermen, moreover on Kauai, that have complained that they think the whales are eating while they're down here, but they just don't have the food source down here. They eat about a ton of food a day. Think of those 20,000 whales, and that's just Hawaii's population. They're coming from California, from Japan up to the northern waters to feed. They're taking in a lot of food. And when you look at the water that's up in Alaska, it's very green. It's not beautiful blue like ours. Ours is pretty blue because there's not much in it. And the green water up there is because it's filled with the plankton and the little fish and the algae. And that's what they're eating. So while they're up there, they eat for the entire time, the several months they are up there. When they get full, they turn around and come back. So they are here now. It's probably the best month right now. They will be going back starting in about April, and they find that quite often it's moms that go back first because they're starving. If they've given birth to the babies down here, they are nursing again. They're giving them 100 gallons of milk a day, and those moms are not eating. So they're using up all that blubber fat that they've got, and then they turn around and go back up to Alaska again. It's usually the pregnant moms are the first ones to come down, and that happens anytime. Usually, sometimes they're seen in October. It's always the challenge to see which of the tour boats can spot the first whale for the year. This year, they were very slow coming down. I'm sure you heard reports, the whales are not coming, where are they? And all of a sudden in January, they just kind of appeared. They're not sure why. There is a question that with all of the climate change and the warming of the seawaters, that it could be affecting the food production in Alaska, and it took them longer to eat. So they stayed longer to feed before coming down. They don't know. The whales don't talk. They don't tell us, but they did show up, luckily, eventually here. They migrate in 4 to 6 weeks. They seem to know where they're going. They're following that underwater railroad track to get down to Hawaii, and most of them go directly from Hawaii back and forth as they do this. Again, it's pregnant moms that will come down first, and then young whales and the teenagers and the moms, and then usually the males, and the reverse is kind of the same thing as they go back up. These are different migrating patterns that go up to the northern areas to feed. You can see the orange is Hawaii. This was figured out in a study. When I mentioned the first place, this SPLASH study, we spent a couple years hiring researchers all over the Pacific area to track the whales. And what they did was take pictures of all those flukes, and they paired them up to see which whale was going where, and trying to go from their feeding grounds to their summer areas, or their breeding grounds to their feeding grounds. They took DNA samples. They would shoot like a little harpoon thing. They said it was like a mosquito bite. It just barely touched the whale. The arrow would pop off, float in the water. They'd go pick it up. But they got DNA samples. And from that, they were able to see if the mom is hanging out in Hawaii, if dad's in Alaska, if the baby likes Baja California. But they're tracking the migration, and they were also able to figure out if the females were pregnant from that, and they're looking for any kind of pollution that might be in these animals, getting it also from that DNA sample. So it was quite the study, but they really figured out the migration of these fellas. There's the social dynamics are really interesting. You have the escorts, which are in the top left-hand picture. You have the mom and the baby. And then you have an escort whale that sometimes hangs around. The dad does not stay with the mom. But this escort could be another male, or it could be another female that doesn't have a baby and hangs around kind of with the mom and the baby. Again, they're not quite sure, but it is protection for that baby as the mom swims it back and forth to and from Alaska. You have competitive groups, and we're going to come back to that in a second. You have the singers. And notice that that whale is upside down. All the whales communicate, but it's the males that actually sing the songs. And when they sing, they have to be upside down. Must be something the way that the sound comes out of them. But the folks that are out researching this have figured this part out. And the whales sing a specific song. And throughout the Pacific each year, all the humpback whales will sing the same song. It's like, who's that conductor, and how do they learn this? And the song is a repetition of short phrases. It could be la 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 la. Repetition over and over again. And the researchers record these sounds, and that's where they get the patterns that are going over and over again. One part of that song will change each year. So it's like, who changes that song? Again, who's that conductor? And next year they'll take the same song with a little variation to it. And over several years, the whole song will change as time goes on. But again, they've noticed it's the males, and they are upside down. They're not sure if they are communicating for some reason or they're just singing. Whether it's part of their mating process or not, they don't know. The subadult is the teenagers. And then you have the moms and the calves. The whales mate while they're down here in Hawaii. Again, that has never been seen or recorded. The mom gets pregnant. She goes up to Alaska, where she feeds for an entire year. She comes back, or not a year, but the season. She comes back down to Hawaii, gives birth while she's down here. After a couple of months of being here with that baby, when the baby's strong enough, she swims it back to Alaska and spends that summer teaching it how to feed, how to be on its own, and then the mom brings the baby back. And at that point, it becomes that subadult, that teenager. And the kid goes, okay, I've had it, Mom. I'm going to go off and play with the other kids, and leaves the mom and goes off with the other young adults to observe behaviors and figure out life and play while they're down here in Hawaii. The dad does not stay with them, so it's a year that the mom spends with that calf is the total time there. Females are larger than the males for a reason, because they're giving birth. And babies consume about 100 gallons of milk a day, and the female loses about a third of its body, which is why it's ready to go back and feed again when its time is up. Love this picture. Competitive males, this is kind of cool. The males fight over the females. They're not playing, they are vying for that position to mate with the whale. So the one that's way out in the front there could be the female. These two guys, it's kind of like the fittest, the strongest, the fittest survive. And these two guys are fighting over that female. And they will keep it up until one of them pulls out. When one of them pulls out, this particular picture, they said there were like 50 of them underneath waiting to go up and fight that next whale. So these males keep fighting and fighting. One will swim off. Another one, who's ever next in line, swims up to the surface and again starts interacting with the strongest male that's there at the time. As they're fighting, they're lunging on top of each other. The skin that's rubbed raw there is from the whale hitting on top of each other. Remember, they're 45 tons. And so there's pretty powerful fighting that goes on. And the best part about this, that I like on this, is that they get to this point and all of a sudden the female goes, okay, I like you or I don't, and she swims off and she makes the decision. So these males could have gone through a couple of days of this and fighting for that position, and then it's up to the female to make that final call on this. We've got different behaviors that you'll see out in the water. You've got the peduncle throw, which is that strong muscle on the back, which is the tail flapping in the water. You've got the peck slap. Those you all see the tail slap. And this one, they get in this position, they go up and down and up and down and up and down. And for some reason, they are reporting this year that they're seeing a lot of tails just sitting upward in the water, not doing anything. And they said the behavior has been seen all over the Pacific. And so it's not just something that's here. They're not quite sure what it is. They tried to figure out if it had something to do with the nursing behavior or if they're just resting in that position. But it's kind of a new behavior that they've seen in this last year, which you may see if you're out in the water. There's nothing wrong with the whale. They're just hanging out with their tail sticking up. The head lunge, and this one, the head will come out of the water, but it will also slap up and down and up and down. So they get a real headache doing this, but just pounding that front third of the body up and down and up and down. Again, they're thinking that it could be communicating or it could be knocking off barnacles and whale lice that they've swum down from Alaska with it on. Don't know, but it is a fairly common behavior down here. The spy hop, just sticking his head up, looking around who's out there. Somebody want to come play with me? But a lot of these behaviors going on here. They don't see as much of this up in Alaska. They're pretty serious about their feeding while they're up there. And everybody loves that breach as it comes out of the water. I saw a breach right off of Waimanalo as I was driving around coming up here this afternoon. Huge splash with it. Again, the singing, we went through this before. Singing while he's upside down. They don't know exactly why they're singing, what they're doing, but the recording is cool. If you, especially over on Maui, go out and just snorkel in the Kihei area, you will hear the whales. Just snorkeling, you hear, there's so many of them over there, and they're all just singing over there, so it's a real common thing to hear. You can also Google this and hear whale songs. Again, the migration. This is a feeding area. These are all birds. And the birds have figured out that the whales are there to feed and obviously are coming in to grab that fish themselves. The humpback whales, when they feed, they open up that jaw. In the top picture, you have the biggest part is the lower jaw. Again, remember I said how this is able to just fold itself way down and open way out and takes in water. We're going to do a bit more on this one. This is what they eat, is small fish, krill, which are like little tiny shrimp. And they eat, like I said, about a ton of this a day. So it's a very, very rich waters where they're going to. And the feeding process is just really awesome. The whales will blow bubbles for two reasons. The top picture, that whale is blowing bubbles because it is distressed. And it's showing something's going on with it and it's disturbed. But the bottom, the picture on the right-hand side, they're blowing what's called a bubble net. And when they feed, they create this bubble net. They swim around and around in a circle. I was up in Alaska and we were actually filming this process going on. We were on a boat and this fishing boat, he saw a bunch of whales off on the side interacting and figured they were doing in the feeding process and took us over there, stops the boat, drops a hydrophone in the water. and we hear this howling sound. It was like a ghostly howling sound, not like what the whale sings when it's down here. And while it was singing, we saw these bubbles appearing on the surface. What they were making, the whales were swimming around and around and around. And as they were doing that, they're blowing this bubble net up. And on the surface, you're getting these giant bubbles that appear on the surface in a circle. And they went around and around and around, and all of a sudden, that circle got closed up with all the bubbles, and the howling stopped. Now, what are they doing when they're swimming around and around? What are they doing? They're corralling the fish. So everything goes to the middle, and they've corralled all that fish together. The bubble net is probably holding them in. And at that point, they came to the surface, opened up these huge mouths of theirs, and water is pouring out all over the place. Fish are jumping all over the place. The birds are coming in. They stood there for, it seemed like forever. I'm sure it wasn't. And then they sunk back down, got quiet. Then all of a sudden, about 15 minutes later, we heard the howling start. And the howling started, we saw the bubbles appear again, and this went on for about 4 hours of this feeding. They had found a great place to eat. Now, when a whale feeds, I'm going to pass this around, this is baleen. They have 200 of these plates that hang down from the roof of the mouth. They're actually about 6 feet long, 6 to 8 feet long. These were taken off of a dead humpback whale this summer up in Alaska. It's like fingernail, and this is what they used to use to make styes in women's corsets. In the olden days was why they were taking the baleen as they were whaling. They were taking the oil in this stuff. Thank goodness we don't do that anymore. But it's like your fingernails. They got little hairs sticking out on all the edges of this. And what happens when they feed is that mouth opens up. Again, there's 200 of these hanging down. They take in that gulp of water, and all the little fish and krill get caught on these little hairs. They take their tongue. Remember, that mouth opens up to be 15 feet wide, at least its huge mouth. The tongue is the size of a little car. Huge. Takes that tongue, swirls around on all of these plates, all these pieces of baleen with these hairs, and stuffs it down the throat. And this is the size of the throat. This is the back of the throat. This is a dryer hose. So, does a whale eat a big thing? No. Is it going to swallow a human being? No. Is it going to swallow a monk seal, a turtle? No, it doesn't. So all they eat is the little tiny stuff, again, that gets trapped on that baleen and goes down that little tiny back of the throat. When you look at how big the whale is, it's kind of out of proportion there. This is the bubble cloud. And as you watch this, that mouth opened up really wide. Let me see if I can redo this. There is the mouth. Our guys were up in an airplane. And then you see those bubbles that have blown around the side. That big circle is the opened up mouth. The things on the side by the head are the pec fins. And it got even bigger. So that is the mouth that's opened up. It's huge. You can imagine the amount of water and stuff that comes in it. It squishes all that water out and moves on with that. But that is the bubble net. Just again, you see the bubbles that are creating that circle. Huge mouth is open, and it takes in all of that food. And then they are up at the surface. This now right here, they are getting ready to sink back down underwater. They've taken in their gulp of water going down. And the group of whales that we were watching all of a sudden came to the surface. And it's like they're spy hopping. They're up there looking around. And we saw way off on the side another pod of whales over there. And the whales over there must have heard our guys feeding. They're going, ooh, we got a restaurant. We got food over here. Those whales started coming over. Our whales came to the surface, chased them off. Said, we're not sharing our food. And they came back and continued to feed. It was a really cool interaction. That was that. We were actually camping on an island up there. We were up there to do filming of this, and one of the guys said, you know, we're going to spend the rest of our lives together because of this experience today. We can't let this one go. It was just a really cool opportunity to see. Threats, and this is something the lady over here was asking about. The main threats to the humpback whales are the orcas and the sharks, and they are mainly a threat to either a humpback whale if it is sick and injured because they're so big, or the babies, and they'll go after the babies. The man-made things are entanglement. Not so much the plastics with the whales are not getting into that, but the whales are more threatened with the ropes and the nets that they get entangled on them. And I'm going to show you a little bit of this. Running into a vessel and harassment, whaling. But the leading one right now that they can deal with is really the entanglement. Here, this whale ran into a propeller on a boat and was injured. Here, the propeller cut through the whale. And it's why boats are asked to go slow during whale season to try to avoid this happening. It does happen. They can't help it. Boaters are told to report this. You're not in trouble if you hit a whale. You're in trouble if you approach the whale and you get caught for that. But if you hit a whale by accident, they want to know because they can go out and sometimes they can help that whale and want to know what is going on. So people are encouraged to report if there have been accidents with this. Marine debris, and this again is one of the leading things, is they get entangled in these ropes and buoys. They're coming off of the fishing gear. Fishermen are not doing this on purpose. It happens. The nets get loose, and as they're swimming from Alaska, they get entangled in their pec fins and their tails, etc., and bring this with them. And I'm going to show you, okay, here again is what this does is if they have it entangled on them, it can keep them from going down underwater, which would keep them from feeding, slows them down. They are more susceptible to being attacked. And what they have developed here is a disentanglement program. That is a tool that they will throw from, they're in a little inflatable boat, they'll throw it out to the whale, and if the whale's got rope on it, they will try to throw it so they catch that hook on that rope that's on the back side of the whale. And then they let the whale pull them around until the whale gets tired. They add more buoys to it. The whale can't dive down when it's got an inflatable boat following it and a bunch of buoys on it. And then the guys go up and they actually cut this stuff off the whale. I'm going to show you how they do this. You've probably seen this or heard this done on the news here. They haven't had too many cases of this year. They've had several reports, but have had troubles actually getting up to the whales. And I know in 2 weeks from now, Chad's going to talk about the disentanglement program more and what they do with the whales and with the other animals. But I'm going to show you a brief little idea of it. Here they're attached to the whale. This seems like it'd be kind of cool. You got a whale pulling you through the water. You're water skiing behind it. But again, they're trying to tire it out. So here, and this is just a quick picture that shows making the cut. They have a hook on the end of that pipe. It's very unsophisticated tools. I watched them over in Maui sit and build this. They went to the hardware store, got a long piece of PVC pipe. They added a curved knife to it. So they get that curved knife over into that rope and they just keep sawing it and the rope comes loose and that's how they disentangle them. Really cool. They do not get in the water as they do this. Our guys go all around the Pacific area teaching other teams how to do this. Our main guy goes to Alaska every summer, follows the whales up there, disentangles them if they need to be as they get back up there, and then he follows them back down again for the wintertime down here. Shows some of the gear they've taken off the whales, big, huge chunks of fishing nets, and this explains it.
He's just barely below the surface, guys. He's coming up.
Freeing a 45-foot, 40-ton humpback whale entangling gear is no easy task. These animals are so large and powerful that they often rip the gear right off the ocean floor and swamp it in some cases, thousands of miles. For those animals that are relocated, the act of disentangling a large whale is dangerous for the whale and the rescuers alike. The Hawaiian Islands Humpback Whale National Marine Sanctuary's rescue team is one of the few disentanglement response teams that is authorized by NOAA fisheries to free large whales from life-threatening entanglements. The sanctuary's team partners with other agencies like NOAA Fisheries, Hawaii's Department of Land and Natural Resources, and the United States Coast Guard. So how do we cut a 40-ton free-swimming whale free of gear? First, we do not get in the water. Instead, we work from boats using a modification of an old whaling technique called kegging. Historically, kegging involved attaching barrels or kegs to the whales by harpooning them. This drag and buoyancy of the barrels would slow the whale down, keep it to surface where it could eventually be approached. Today, for disciplinary purposes, we use grapples, like the one you see here being thrown, to attach to the gear that is entangling the animal. Once attached, we get a Nantucket sleigh rod, just like the whale is used to get in their wooden skiffs. However, instead of skiffs, we use inflatable boats. And instead of wood barrels, we attach large plastic buoys, as seen here, as other kegging buoys to provide drag and buoyancy. Over time, the animal will remain at or near the surface where we can haul ourselves closer. At this point, we can assess the contaminant to determine how best to cut the animal free. This whale has multiple wraps of line around its tail, with buoys and several hundred feet of line trailing. The trailing line provides drag, causing the wraps to cut deeply into the animal. The rescuers use a specially designed hook knife on the end of a pole to reach forward to cut the whale free. Here we have some helmet cam footage showing one rescuer keeping the rescue inflatable in position right behind the animal. The other rescuer has a 20-foot pole with a hook knife on the end. The knife is dull on the outside and sharp on the inside, surface to help protect the animal. The rescuer reaches forward to carefully cut the wraps, which over time have embedded themselves deeply into the whale's tail. 3 cuts are made, at which time the remaining wrap is shed and the whale is entirely free of all gear. This animal has been saved from almost once a life-threatening entanglement. We realize we can't save every whale on tangled gear. However, we can gain information from our efforts as to reduce the threat in the future. Over the past several years, the sanctuary and network members have freed more than 20 large whales in Hawaii from life-threatening entanglements, removing over 10,000 feet of line. Some animals, like the calf shown here, were entangled in marine debris. Other animals were entangled in fishing gear. This animal entangled through the mouth was carrying hundreds of feet of line in a large buoy. Once cut free, we found that the gear had been set off the Pribilof Islands in the center of the Bering Sea. This is a straight line distance of over 2,500 nautical miles from the Hawaiian Islands. Over 250 trained responders across multiple islands work together to respond to entangled whales. Many members of the ocean community assist with the effort by reporting, assessing, documenting, and standing by until an authorized team arrives. While we will continue to free large whales from life-threatening entanglements, our ultimate goal is to prevent or at least reduce the threat of entanglement for these animals into the future.
That's how they do it. Pretty cool. I thought it would always be cool to be able to go home and they ask you at school, what does your dad do? Well, he disentangles big whales. The sanctuary is, we are a federal program. We are part of the National Marine Sanctuary Program. There are 14 of us in the country. Places like Monterey Bay, Florida Keys are also national marine sanctuaries. They are areas that are designated to take care of special ecosystems, areas, or animals. We are under the Department of Commerce, and the next level down is National Ocean Service, and then we're part of NOAA. So we are a federally funded program that supports these animals. So, any questions from anyone? Yes.
We do the NOAA whale survey.
Okay.
And
Thank you.
last week when we did it, there were 2 incidents that we really didn't know what to do. One of them was a helicopter that was obviously under 1,000 feet. In fact, there were 2 of them. One of them had been a fire chopper. And also a boat that approached too closely. And that's measuring the size of the boat in relationship to where they were with the whale. Pictures of a boat, but of course couldn't identify the boat because it was
Too far away.
4 miles out.
Yeah.
And not have a large telephoto booth. Is there a number
Yes.
that we should be calling? And could you get that put into the packets for the sites on the island?
It should have been in there. I will make sure it is. I'll check with them and make, because it should be there. Site leaders should have it, or you also call, and do you have that number?
Yeah, we do. It's in our packets.
Okay, because
And-
the site leader did not call at
It's in
all.
our
Okay.
training materials, so it should be in that.
Okay.
I think our site is in that.
Well, we had two
Okay.
site leaders, one had replaced the other one.
Okay.
So I'm not sure of the second.
Yeah, and they may, some of the site leaders who knew may not have known, but there's also a phone number just to us. And if you call us, even if you can't recognize who it is, it's good that we report that and they can go out and we know which area it's in, that at least it's reporting something and going on record that it was seen, and maybe later it'll be seen. But yeah, that information should be with your site leader. Yeah,
Go to ask us.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
She gave us an email address to send photos to, but it didn't work. I think I must have had something wrong.
The email, our website went down last week or 2 weeks ago. It should be up again, so try it again. Or send them to me. And we'll give you my email before you leave. We'd love to have them. Any other questions? Yeah.
In relation to the mission of whale conservation in the future, what is the thinking within these groups of people vis-a-vis the Indian government recently, last year, declared all cetaceans as non-human persons to give them
Different
protections?
status. Yeah. Okay.
So I just wonder if that is known or thought about, something that in the future for the United States.
I don't know that. You mean India? Indian. Okay. I don't know. Interesting question. Don't know.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Yeah.
That they did that, and so that gives these cetaceans rights.
That
Such as the right to freedom, right to
interesting.
not be captured and used in shows, all kinds of
Interesting.
rights.
Yeah.
By designating them as non-human persons.
Interesting. Don't know. I know that the humpback whales up in Alaska with Eskimo populations up there they are allowed to take 1 or 2 per year for cultural purposes. When you said, yeah, so yeah. Yes.
Do the individual whales come back to the same site? And do they just sort of, I like this one better, just stand someplace else?
You mean each year?
Each year.
That's why they've been able to track them. So a lot of them do. And so they have seen, and that's what they were doing with that research project, was tracking them from place. And the scientists will see. That's why they get excited. They see that fluke again. So we know some do, but others, probably like us, decide, let's go try someplace else, see what it's like. But we know that some do, yeah. And I want to know how they know where they're going. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
How long is the gestation period? Does a mom have a baby?
About 11 months.
Okay.
So from the time that they conceive down here, no, it's not 11 months. They conceive here, go back up to Alaska, come back and give birth.
There are 9 months, wow. That's a lot.
Yeah. A lot of whale that's there. Yeah, yeah.
Another question, do you have the number of whales that were in the NOAA count last year? Around?
On me right now, no, but if you email me, I can get that for you. And I think it's actually posted on the website. So you just need to send that information and ask me those questions and I'll get that to you. Yeah. And then I'm not, the whale count varies, really dependent upon weather and what you can see. And they were really concerned, a week ago, because the surf had been so high that it was really going to affect certain areas. And I know they've been working on it this last 2 weeks to try to figure out how much of an impact it had, but it does vary from month to month, just partly because of, and from island to island it can. If you got the really rainy, nasty weather, you just can't see them. And they don't surface, so it is, but they get a ballpark. Yeah, but glad you guys are participating. Yeah.